We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with Liberty Nation's Durham Report panel, Tim Donner, Scott DeCasenta, and Graham J. Noble. Earlier on, we talked about the overall impact of the Durham Report, but now I'd like to get your thoughts more on the institution. So Donald Trump, he's been complaining for the last 7 years, pretty much, that all hands were set against him, that and this is a phrase that he's used time and time again. He said it was a witch hunt. And I've been thinking about that particular phrase because a witch hunt, witches weren't real. So it was, they would say, well, if they drown, they're not a witch. If they don't drown, they're a witch, so we burn them. And it seems that the witch hunt really was what was happening at the hands of these agencies, wasn't it? Scott, why don't you kick us off?
Well, except that the entirety of the witch hunt seems not designed to, produce political gain and power for the, more like a mass hysteria thing, I think. And for this thing, we know it was a hit job. This was Hillary and her leadership team, the people who are, at the top of those circles, making a political hit on Donald Trump, aided and abetted by a supplicant press who's still now basking in their awards that they gave themselves.
Pulitzers,
for
Peabodys,
fake story. And that's, again, that's the smoking gun that the report revealed. It was a grand conspiracy. The conspiracy's laid bare, and we know it not because of any reporting from these press people who have on speed dial these administration officials, but because of Russian intelligence and Russians spying on Hillary Clinton and her campaign people. That's how we know this. It's a disgrace all around.
Think if the elite media had the least bit of curiosity or willingness to touch this story, far from being on the other side of promoting what they knew to be false. We pretty much know all along. Think if they had just touched the surface with this, how differently this would have turned out. In other words, the problem with these special prosecutors is they are assigned in the heat of the moment, and then they go on for years with their investigations, and by the time they come out, the other side in any instance can say that's old news, nothing new. Nothing to see here. That's the problem.
Let me just pop in here and say, Tim, you're so right. The next presidential election is going to be affected by this conspiracy. You think about it, like we're now going to see reverberations to Donald Trump's ongoing campaign to be the nominee and to be president that are going to be profoundly affected by this revelation. Again, the FBI once again with their hands in another election.
Right. I really want to jump in on this, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
We learned that CIA Chief John Brenner, he visited the Obama White House to speak with the top team there.
To brief
the top team.
To deliver a briefing.
That Hillary Clinton aide had come up with this idea to disparage Donald Trump by connecting him to Russia. That was the heart of the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, surely Joe Biden was involved in that briefing, wasn't he? I mean, either he was Barack Obama's wingman,
Mark,
or he wasn't.
A great question for Joe Biden is, what did he know and when did he know it? I think it's inappropriate to say that we know what he did know, but it's a great question for him, and that he isn't asked that by everyone all the time, and they let Karine Jean-Pierre get away with saying
just walk out of the briefing as she did on
an indictment
Tuesday.
Of our colleagues in the journalism.
Gentlemen, she cannot comment on an ongoing investigation.
It's not ongoing anymore.
It's a Hatch Act. It's a Hatch Act violation.
Graham, what's your take?
The most horrendously, the most obscene irony in all of this, and it's not irony in a funny way, it's irony in a really bad way, is the fact that Christopher Steele, the former British intelligence officer who, by his own admission, was, quote, desperate, unquote, to see that Donald Trump never became president. He was the one that came up with this dossier, which is actually a collection of kind of memos and media, news media clippings and kind of other, salacious
dreams.
In fact, what his primary subsource, the man that provided most of that material to him, described it as gossip and innuendo. And that's bad enough. The fact that the FBI just mobilized an entire investigation to look into gossip and innuendo. But the worst irony is that Trump was being accused of colluding with the Russians, and yet the primary Christopher Steele's primary subsource was a man named Igor Danchenko, a Russian. Okay, he was
He's
living
French,
in Washington.
right? He's French, right?
Yeah, right. But he was living in Washington, D.C. So to me, this is the most ridiculous part of it all, is that we are supposed to believe that, it was so terrible that Trump was colluding with the Russians, which of course he wasn't. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. And yet the almost all of the material that was being used to investigate Trump's connections with the Russians came from a Russian national. Yeah. And it's you would have thought that somebody at the FBI at some point would have said, there's something wrong with this picture. We're supposed to be investigating Trump for his connections with the Russians, and our entire investigation is based upon what a Russian has told us.
Graham, if only we had 51 intelligence agency specialists to write a letter. And we're going to be right back with the panel after this short break discussing the media and whether they're giving back their Pulitzers. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe
You only
space.
did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.